Just a quick spoiler alert, I will be talking about the entire game in this video, so if you haven't had the chance to play JSAB, despite its age, I really would recommend it, because now is the time. Usually, this channel is used to beat things that are already down, and complain, but man, I still fucking love this game, and I really want to talk about it. I have spoken about it on this channel before, in my video around perfecting boss fight music. That video is a little dated, if not embarrassing, because there's like absolutely no respect to any amount of musical theory, and it is just me yapping.
The music playing is no longer the boss's, it's yours. You become the final boss.
But I guess that's kind of my whole channel. Just Shapes and Beats was a game released in May 2018, which is 7 years ago now. Damn. I originally got into the game as I watched a Let's Play from 8-Bit Ryan, and I adored watching him play the game so much, I actually bought it myself. Well, that's not entirely true. I bought it on a Nintendo Switch, using half of a $50 Nintendo eShop gift card that I won in a Mario Maker 2 building competition. Being a fairly mindless 13-year-old at the time, with media literacy in the gutter, I loved pretty much any game I could get my hands on, so needless to say, JSAB was added to the list. Fast forward to today, and I decided to replay the whole game to see if it still held up, and honestly, this experience has made me garner a new level of appreciation for JSAB, not just as a game to be played, but just as a masterclass in all levels of design. So what makes Just Shapes and Beats so good, and what can other games learn from it? The first and truthfully most important thing that I believe JSAB does is its perfection of theming. The title of the game is pretty much what you get, and it does a damn good job of it. Pretty much every level is constructed of simplistic shapes, and even the more complex objects are smartly built from multiple simple shapes stuck together. The developers take it one step further in JSAB though, because the whole world sells itself through its simplicity. But that's the shapes. What about the beats? The music in JSAB is mostly consisting of chiptune type of songs. Now, I've had to re-record this because originally I referred to it as the Newgrounds era of music, when the term I was really looking for was simply modernistic chiptune. Whilst this sound does step more into the realm of nostalgia than actual good music, I would be lying to say that most of these tracks don't hold up still. What's more important, however, is the music's immaculate implementation. One of the best examples of this is how the movement of the world itself matches with the music. Things like the compactors in the factory zone, or the rising lava sequence in the volcano. These aren't actual discrete levels in the game, but they really immerse you inside of the game world. I really appreciate the simple attention to detail in places that would be seemingly unnecessary. Theming isn't just on point for the grand scheme of the whole game though. Each level feels like it has one single theme it's trying to execute, and they're done to a T. When it comes to more explicit themes, you have Clash, being a level based around the clashing of squares and circles that you're caught in the middle of. Or you have Try This, a heavily James Bond inspired level. On the other hand, you have some of the more implicit ones that don't necessarily relate at all to something in specific, but execute a level design flawlessly. You've got a level like Cascade that utilises these cube trails at different sizes and speeds to make different patterns. Or my favourite level in the whole game, Spectra, a level which fragments the arena into hexagons and is made almost exclusively of hexagons. Oh, and who made the song? Chipsol, the person who also made the music for a game called Super Hexagon. Literally every level in the game has some discernible theme and idea to it, and while some are executed to varying levels of success, every level has its own identity, and I adore that. JSAB is what many would describe as a bullet hell. Now, whoa, put your pitchforks away, Toho crowd. JSAB is an incredibly easy game. If you're scared or off-put by games that often look like this, but still have a slight inclination to try playing them, things like JSAB or Undertale are often very good introductions to the genre before you start having to dodge rain. And for those of you more skillful individuals, there is a hard mode, which is still fairly easy but to each their own. And yeah, the bullet hell genre is often gatekept by elitists that think that a bullet hell has to be insanely difficult to be deserving of the title, otherwise I guess it's like a bullet purgatory or something, I don't know. The game completely revolves around you controlling this faceless blue cube to navigate and dodge pink damaging zones. It's really as simple as that. The game has a story, and I will touch on that later, but fundamentally, the game is as simple as surviving the length of a level until it ends. In standard levels, you're allowed to take a total of 3 hits before dying, but there are checkpoints. In boss levels, you can take a maximum of 6 hits, but death sends you all the way back to the start. I've always found it a little odd how the game calls them boss levels, and the community calls them boss fights, as if you actually fight anything. But no, it's just dodging, except for the ending where you do actually fight back, but we'll get to that later. The game manages to remain fresh within its levels because all of them have their own gimmicks, as mentioned previously, and whilst I love everything in this game, the bulk of the beauty is in its boss levels. They're generally perceived as the best of the bunch. If I have to complain a little here, I think JSAB does suffer from visual clarity issues sometimes. Due to them trying to work with 2 colours and solely 2 colours, you have these situations where the developers don't want you to get bullshitted by something suddenly blinking onto the screen. So a lot of the time, an object will have a lowered opacity before it's about to become a hitbox. This is of course good design, but occasionally they take it a step too far and try to add aesthetics to levels with faded pink blobs, and it can really throw you off. An example of this is the water droplets in Subwoofer Dubstep that could be easily mistook for actual projectiles, or some of the visual effects in Into the Zone making it hard to properly react to projectiles. Also, New Game, the level, is just kind of all-round unfair on players unfamiliar with the level, as there's very few tells for where the funky guy's gonna go next. Still love it, but I can admit this one's a little bullshit. In fact, as I was writing this script, I rewatched this fight only to learn that one of the things they took away from the hardcore difficulty was an indicator for where the cannon's going to fire, so that's nice. But for most occasions, they actually make an extra effort to prevent the player feeling cheated. For example, the aforementioned Into the Zone has a high note, which the game indicates in advance, specifically so you know one pillar will rise higher than the others. Sure, most players won't be sitting there when it happens, but it covers for the very few that might get upset if that hit them. JSAB also handles teaching the player new mechanics well too. Subwoofer Dubstep teaches you about water, specifically so you're prepared for it in the boss level Lycanthropy. Things like this make me really appreciate games, because it's showing not telling. Give the player a watered down version of something so they learn themselves how it works, rather than a text pop-up that says something like, "Be careful, water may react to things being dropped into it." Despite this game seeming to lack personality, there is actually a story. In fact, all of the main game takes place under the pretense of the story. Now, I'll admit the story is just a generic hero fantasy, and the game writes it exclusively through actions rather than words. The story is undoubtedly the weakest part of the game, but I still think it's something worth talking about, as it's not bad. Frankly, they did the best they could within the confines of their theme. Now, I don't want this to become a glorified walkthrough of the entire game, as this video is meant to be an analysis as opposed to a video documentary let's play. So to solve that issue, I'm going to rush through the entire story in one sentence, so that I don't yap too long. Here we go. You go through the tutorial and beat the boss, trigger fake out ending credit sequence in which the boss returns and destroys the world, scattering 3 power triangles around, one of which you get after scaling a volcano, the next you get after saving your cube friend in the factory, and the last you get from the crown of the boss atop his tower, and unfortunately uses the power of the triangles to transform into some horrific beast. You beat him down once again, until you use the power of friendship to finally fight back and defeat him for good. Got that? Okay, let's talk about the nuance. To begin with, I am incredibly split on the opening sequence. You could make an argument that it was meant to be opening credits like a Breath of the Wild title screen, but the usage of the phrase "it's over" really does not sell that. But on the other hand, holy fuck I adore the way the musicians are credited here. Upon passing the credits for the first time, the only person given props is Danimal Cannon, which you already know from the tutorial isn't the only person who has their music in the game. When the boss begins destroying the world, however, the same accreditation you saw earlier is now cycling through all of the musicians who contributed, to the beat of the song, which I fucking love. Another thing I have to appreciate the story for is that it does visual storytelling well. Despite working with a faceless blue cube, you do still sense some amount of humanity coming from its movements, to the point I wouldn't call you stupid to get emotionally attached. None of the characters actually ever speak, so expressions and movements are the only way you can infer personality. Finally, the execution of the final fight to the song Till It's Over by Tristan is perfect, in the sense the boss doesn't actually progress until the music has hit a natural transition point, which makes the ending so much sweeter. And whilst silly, I do really like how the triangles are used as a defibrillator. Anyway, to close this section out, I'll admit that it's the most generically written story ever, but you know, I don't care. It's one of those things that only works best when experienced, not told, and I can't fault it for being bad, it's just average at best. Alright, we're nearing the end of my yap sesh, so I'm going to use this time to comment on some aspects of the game that I think need mentioning, but didn't really fit into any of the major categories. Whilst my favourite level is Spectra, I have to elaborate on what is generally agreed to be the best level. Close to me is the magnum opus of JSAB. It has a perfect blend of story elements, gameplay mechanics, and a damn fucking good song. Firstly, Close to Me, the song by Saberpulse, is probably one of the few songs in JSAB that I'd consider having a melancholy undertone. Given all the music in the game is EDM, it is still pretty noise heavy, but you can tell that there's some emotion behind this one. Further to this, the level takes place in a point in the story where you've seen that the triangle power is being used to corrupt, with this level literally being you fighting your corrupted ally, an uncommon, but often powerful trope when used. And finally, the level is just downright fantastic. The gimmick of the level utilises 3 different forms, which are choreographed by the cube's different faces. As you grow accustomed to them, you come to know what each attack does and how to dodge it correctly. On top of this, the slow jam section right before the conclusion is perfectly short and sweet to accentuate the intensity of the other portions. I also love how this level has a short aura farming section that is only there for the sake of the story. To top it all off, every single bit of this song was considered when crafting the level, from the movements of the cube matching the background bleeps, to the drone sounds often coinciding with a slow moving object dragging across the screen. It's genuinely a masterpiece. It may not be my favourite level, but I can absolutely say that it's the best crafted one in the game. This also plays a little into my next point, about how much I adore the way this game uses the play area. Whenever the devs don't want you to go somewhere, it would be so easy to just slap a big pink rectangle there and say, get out. But some examples really go the extra mile. The pyramid in Barracuda prevents you from going to the bottom of the screen by having these volume meter inspired rows cut you off to the beat of the song. The cube in Close to Me channels a circular hitbox, but the actual attack itself is a bunch of varying tools from its forms, swinging out at you. Or the ending of Vindicate Me has these sticks that poke out of the bottom border, irregularly giving this sense of, like, a disorderly battlefield. All of these, they could have easily slapped a big rectangle or circle and called it a day, but the choice to make all of these unique adds so much personality to each level. Finally, there are a lot of bonus custom levels that are accessible outside of the main story mode, some of them being quite recognisable songs you may know from other places. I think it's a neat addition, and a lot of these levels are fun, but I don't need to comment on them any more than that. It's just good bonus content for replayability. Just Shapes and Beats is probably one of my favourite games of all time. It does so much well, and even the minor criticisms I have are the most incredibly nitpicky things ever, and would likely bother very few people. Undoubtedly, I would have to recommend every second I spent with this game, and hey, if you're still not convinced, well, Then let me close this video out with the game's anti-piracy measures. Thank you for watching.
Downloading pirated games is stealing! Stealing is against the law!
Hey there, Lash here. I just wanted to say that it's okay, I'm not mad. I've played my share of pirated game when I was a kid, so I guess this is karma, right? I remember when I was a kid, I didn't have any money to support my favorite developer. So I just wanted to say, if you cannot support the game devs with money, you can support them with words. You can talk about them, share the games with everyone, leave a positive review, a good rating, send them a tweet, an email, whatever. Let other people know. That helps us a lot. After all, if some people knows about the game, some of them will have money and buy it. In the end, we just want to be able to create more games.